Good morning. I'm recording on the morning for once. It's great. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get into that in about 30 seconds. It's Gaz here, back with another season review for Brit Does Baseball. We haven't really touched the East Coast yet. We've done the Braves one off the top of my head. But we're going to New York. We're going to probably the biggest city on the East Coast, if you ask anyone from New York. And we're here to talk about everyone's favorite team, the New York Mets. And the reason I'm recording in the morning, as I said, is because we've actually got a British fan coming on with us today. So all the way from London, it's George. George, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited.
I'm excited as well. As I said, I'm recording this in the morning, so I actually have daylight. Sometimes you'll notice that light behind me is normally on, and it blinds out the camera. But for once, I get to record in the daylight. It's beautiful. How have you been?
Yeah, been good. It's been good. The off season is in full swing. You've got Jeff Basan tweet notifications on. I'm refreshing every 30 seconds. So yeah, no, I'm doing well.
Wonderful. And George is here, as you can tell from his cap. He's not a Yankees fan. He's a New York Mets fan, which is fantastic to see because if you ask 90% of people in Britain if they're a New York sports fan, they will be the Yankees. So it's nice and refreshing that we've got a Mets fan with us today, which is apt because we're talking about the New York Mets. So before we go into the 2025 season and the 2026 outlook, if you've watched our podcast before, we've got a couple of hot takes from you for you. The segment's called Boo's Hot Takes. Boo is still on annual leave. I don't know when she's coming back. I haven't seen her now for a good hour. She could be anywhere in the house. Boo's my greyhound, for those of you that don't know. So the hot takes have come from the Brit Does Baseball team. So we've got two hot takes. As always, we're going to use Britain's favourite restaurant in everyone's opinion, apart from anyone that matters. And that's the Nando's Spice Scale. So if you agree with the take, it's mild. Chicken's still alive. It's not even come out of the kitchen. If you disagree with a hot take, you can go all the way up to very hot. And if you think it's outrageous, there is that secret spice that I'm not going to say because I normally have to explain the scale. But because George is British, I'm assuming you've had Nando's once in your life.
Yeah, I have, although I've never ventured up to very hot. So yeah, I'm usually on the lower end. Yeah.
I'm more of a medium guy. I'm starting to
Yeah.
transition to hot, but it depends on what dish. But we can get into that offline. Are you ready for your hot takes?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Perfect. The first one is that the New York Mets team will be better without Pete Alonso on it in 2026.
It's like, how do you separate the heart from the head, because I mean, like, the period in which I've been watching the Mets has been the Pete Alonso Mets, like his rookie season, what he's done for the team, becoming the home run leader. Like, it feels sacrilege to say that the team might be better without him, but he and the numbers look good when you look at them last year, but I do feel as though they will be better. So I'm gonna go for medium just because it hurts to say.
Yep.
But I just think the defense, like, it says something that currently the Mets look like they're going to start Jorge Polanco at first base next year, and he hasn't played a single rep of first base in the majors. And Mets fans are saying, okay, that's probably an upgrade. But you're losing obviously the bat and all of that. And I don't know, there's ups and downs. I do think they'll be better next year. Whether that's because Pete Alonso's not there, I don't know. It sucks to lose him, but if you get reliable first base defense, then maybe you are better off. I don't know.
See, I didn't know that Pete Alonso had that bad a glove. I know that, the projections are I think he's 28, 29 now, might be a little bit older. And obviously in 3 or 4 years, he will be probably just a DH. And the numbers speak for themselves realistically. But I've not known him to be like a terrible glove. Like, you compare him to someone like Luis Arias, who's known for being bad. And, he's more of a contact hitter. But Pete Alonso for me was like, okay, he's slow, but okay, he's big meat Pete, polar bear, whatever you want to call him. But I didn't know his defense was that bad currently. And I know it projects to get worse, but is his defense really that bad?
I think if you ask Mets fans, like, the one thing that sticks in their head from this year was the botched throw to Kodai Senga at first that went over his head. And this was when Kodai Senga had like an ERA below 1. He
Yeah.
looked like the best pitcher in baseball, and then he tears his hamstring and he's out for a couple of months, and he comes back and he doesn't look the same. And I think on a day-to-day basis, like he can pick things at first and he can throw the ball around, but there's like moments like that where it's just like, oh my god, like how are we going to have to put up with this, year after year? I don't know. I mean, he's probably not as bad as his reputation with Mets fans, but
Yeah.
he then plays like that, and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do another one of
Fair
those.
enough. I wasn't aware of that. I don't watch Mets baseball on a
That's fair.
day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't because I'm not a Mets fan. I've got this. I mean, I wrote this down. I was expecting minimum hot because I just think that bat you can't replace that bat. And Jorge Polanco is a decent bat. He showed for the Mariners in the playoffs, but Pete Alonso is going to mash you 30, 35 home runs. So
Yeah.
I think for the Mets to not even, I mean, they may have made an effort. I think they made more of an effort before the 2025 season. I was a bit shocked. And, he ended up getting paid by the Orioles of all people. I don't know. It just seemed like a bit. I don't think the Mets are going to be better off without Pete Alonso on the team. And we can get into the moves they've made later. But I don't know. I've got that as hot. But, medium I get because you've got, again, you're going to be more of an expert than I am. And, head versus heart. I don't know. It's a tough hot take. And I'd argue the second one's even going to be tougher. So I apologize in advance. The second hot take is that Juan Soto didn't show his worth last year for a contract that ends up being bigger than Shohei Ohtani's, 15 years, $765 million with no deferrals. Where have you got that on the SPY scale?
I've got that very hard.
Okay.
I think Soto was awesome last year. Like, I think a career high home runs, almost getting 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases. Like the defense, the defense is never gonna be what you want it to be. And I think he will obviously end up playing DH long term. But he led the league in walks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was kind of the player after the first. I think people built an impression after the first month or two because he started slowly. But I think when the Mets were bad, which was kind of the whole second half of the year, he was the one consistently putting up offense and like trying to drag them out of it. And he had games where he just completely took over, like just in crazy stats. And I don't know. I think as a Mets fan, people are still getting used to having Steve Cohen as an owner who can just spend stupid money. And especially kind of with what we've seen this offseason from the Dodgers, it does kind of just feel nice to have like, oh, okay, one of like the top 5 players in the league plays for the Mets. That's always going to feel pretty good. Like, even if it's an overpay, I'm kind of fine with it. Like, I'm not worried about Steve Cohen's wallet. So I'm okay. If we're paying him a little bit more than he's worth, that's fine by me. If he gets to play in New York for 15 years, then I'm probably going to enjoy most of those years. So that's fine by me.
That's fair enough. And then I think I'm one of those people who first month and a half, I think it's fair to say Soto wasn't that guy. But he did turn it on, and I think I associate the first month and a half of Juan Soto with the second half of the Mets' entire season. I'm like, oh, they were crap last year. And then you look under the hood and it's, oh no, 43 home runs. Yep, fair enough. 38 stolen bases. As you said, the defense isn't great. And I think 3 or 4 years' time, you're probably looking at a DH, which is fine. You can pay that much for DH. I guess I've got this take as more of a medium because I just think Shohei Ohtani gives you it on both sides of the ball, and I think maybe Soto obviously doesn't give you anything on the pitching side, but they're both stupidly high contracts. I don't know. It was a bit of a tough one. I don't disagree with very hot. I think you could go either way with it, and I think as a Mets fan, you're right to go very hot. But I don't know. I think it's a tough one between Soto and Ohtani because they're both different players.
That's fair. I think the thing about the Ohtani contract as well, and it's a bit like the Judge contract, is that like the further away you get from it, just the better and better that contract looks.
Yeah.
Like especially like with Kyle Tucker getting what he got, like thinking about he's going to make more year over year than Ohtani and Soto.
Yeah.
And kind of what his output is with the bat, and like like you said, Ohtani as well pitching. That Ohtani contract looks like a steal now.
Yeah, I mean, I could do a whole episode on this. How the Otani contract has probably started the idea that we won't have baseball in 2027, and I think the Tucker
Yeah.
contract is just a nice bow on top of the present, or cherry on top of the cake, on top of the icing, whatever you want to call it. But we'll save that for another episode. So those are your two hot takes. Boo has just told me, she's informed me, she went, yeah, you did me proud there. So good job on the hot takes. So let's talk about the reason we're here. We're here to talk about the 2025 New York Mets season. Finished with a record of 83 and 79, which was good enough for second in the NL East. Unfortunately, you guys didn't make the playoffs, which was a bit of a shock. It was a season of two halves. The first half of the season, you guys were incredible. Rotation was nails. Everyone was hitting, apart from Juan Soto, really. And then second half of the season, everything flipped. You went on one of the biggest slumps of recent memory. You finished with a winning record, but ultimately didn't get into the playoffs, as we said. The hitters still hit, but the pitchers decided they wanted to go on holiday a couple of months early. And you tried at the deadline, tried to get players like Cedric Mullins come in and didn't really add to the team. So I guess the first question is, if you could sum up the 2025 season in one word, what would you use and why?
Oof. Yeah, I think inconsistent would probably, like you said, it was a season of two halves. Yeah, inconsistent, or just the word pitching maybe would sum it up. I think, like you said, the rotation was nails to start the season. It was so good, but like despite itself, like nobody was expecting guys like Clay Holmes and David Peterson to be as good as they were.
Yeah.
But that all kind of just came back to bite them in the back half of the season. Like they just didn't have the arms. The bullpen was leaky apart from Edwin Diaz. Like there was no real run prevention at all. I don't think anybody was paying attention to the Mets by August because they were collapsing. But like Mets fans will like remember that the August offense, I think it was something like the best Mets offense in the history of the team over the span of a month. But they just couldn't stop people from scoring runs.
Yeah.
So yeah, the thing I'll remember is the pitching in the back half of the year because it was just atrocious.
Yeah, and you say about the bullpen, you went 0 for 70 when you were trailing after 8 innings. So there was either no comeback or no clutch from the offense, or the bullpen just couldn't hold it down. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that in your first paragraph, really talking about the Mets, it's the pitchers and the bullpen. Let's dive a little bit more deeper. Would you like to start with the positives, or let's start with the positives? I feel like we can spend enough time on the negatives. Positives, we've said him already. Juan Soto, 43 home runs, 105 RBIs, 38 stolen bases. Aptly supported by, as you would expect, Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, both of which hit over 30 home runs. Pete Alonso chipped in with 126 RBIs. Only stole one base, though. But I guess for a big boy, that's pretty admirable. The offense this year, electric. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, in stops and starts again, like it felt like players went on runs by themselves. Like there was never, you look at the teams that did really well this year, like the Mariners and the Blue Jays, who like maybe people weren't expecting to go as far as they did. They all got hot at the same time, and they all hit that streak together. And like you could pinpoint so many moments in this year where like Mark Vientos was not a good offensive player this year, but he had a crazy run of a few weeks where it just felt like he was the only person putting up any runs in August. And like Brett Beatty as well, just had these runs where like, okay, he looks like he could be an everyday player. Nobody else is chipping in. Lindor was, but it's kind of always the case with Lindor that like he starts slowly and then you turn around by July and August and you're like, oh, his stats are what they always are. You know, he hits kind of consistently. Alonso was, and I kind of going back to the hot take earlier, why I'm not like devastated to lose his bat is that he hits so well in low leverage situations, but with runners in scoring position, he was woeful this year, and kind of the same with Nimmo. And like that, I won't miss because watching them strike out in the eighth and ninth inning with runners in scoring position was just like maddening. Like they couldn't put the ball in the air to save their lives. So I think there's definitely positives from the offense. Like Soto will always draw 100 walks, and if he can add 40 home runs and 30 stolen bases to that year over year, then like that's obviously an elite player. Lindor will probably always hit 30 until he starts to decline, and you'll get pretty great defense from him as well. And then like Beatty probably would have been the everyday third baseman until the Bo Bichette signing. I think we've got good prospects. I think Francisco Alvarez as well. We could like look back in a year's time and say, okay, Francisco Alvarez is maybe like a top 5 or 10 catcher, like offensive catcher in the league. Like that was really positive. But like again, these are a lot of ifs. And you look at a team like the Dodgers, or even a team like the Blue Jays, or even in the NL. Like I have less question marks over your Cubs lineup. Like there's less ifs there. Like I feel like I know what I'm getting from those players. Whereas the Mets, I'm like, well, if Francisco Alvarez can do this, and if Brett Baty can do that, so I think there's definitely positives. It was a good season for those younger players, but it remains to be seen. You never know.
Yeah, and I guess the main thing is I've always associated the Mets with the big three. So last year I was like Soto, Alonso, Francisco Lindor. Obviously, you're losing a big part of that in Pete Alonso. Brandon Nimmo had a sneaky good season, but he's off to the Rangers, or is now with the Rangers in exchange for Marcus Semien, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I always associated Starlin Marte as being a guy that could hit, but he had a bit of a fall off this year. But I think the key one, as you said, Francisco Alvarez, he looks so good in 2024. And last year, I believe he was injured for part of the year. I'd like if he comes back to what he was in 2024. I think you guys will be all right on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think like you were saying earlier, it was a tale of two hearts for him as well, because he was woeful at the start of the season coming back from injuries, and then we sent him down to the minors, and then I think after he came back from the minors, I can't remember what month that was, but he had a WRC plus of like 140 or 150. Like he was just crushing it. But by that point, the Mets weren't really competitive, and it didn't really matter. But he when he came back at the end of last year, he did look really good. So fingers crossed. He's a fun player.
Yeah, the troll or El Troll, I can't remember.
Yeah, El Troll. Yeah.
Anyway, we've spoken about what went really well, and that was the offense. On overall, I think you guys had a fun team. What wasn't so fun was the second half pitching for the New York Mets. So as you alluded to before, Clay Holmes came over from the Yankees, was a reliever, transitioned into a starter. Actually finished the year. The thing is, though, you look at all of the stats for your starters and your top three: David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and Kodai Senga. They all finished with ERAs. I mean, David Peterson really fell off. He had an ERA of 4.22. I know he was an all-star, 30 games played. Clay Holmes finished with an ERA of 3.53, and Kodai Senga actually finished with an ERA of 3.02. But if we just look at Kodai Senga's fall off for the moment, up to before he got injured, he had an ERA of, I believe it's 1.47. He then went on an injured list for the month. By the end of the year, his ERA was back up to 3.02. And just looking at every single start that he made after he came back from his injury, he didn't get to 6 innings once before he then ended the year down in AAA, I believe. And I think that's the same for most of the pitchers. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but as we said, David Peterson was lights out the first 2/3 of the year. Last third of the year just gets blown up since the All-Star break. Everyone was like, oh no, this guy's actually not very good. Clay Holmes, I think, was solid enough the whole year, but again, had a better start. And by the end of it, you guys were relying on you youngsters. One of my favorite nicknames in baseball, the Sproat Goat, Brandon Sproat. You had Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong. I know he didn't perform as well as maybe you would have expected, but it was good to get him some reps. Why did the pitching fall off, do you think?
I think, like you said, it was the frustrating thing was watching them not be able to get through the fifth. And I think that really also then contributed to why the bullpen was leaky. I think if you look at why did it fall off? I mean, Senga was awesome to start the year. He was brilliant. Can you attribute it to the injury? Maybe, but the docs clearly thought he was healthy enough to pitch, and he just never looked like he had it. He was getting hit everywhere, and they were pulling him after 2 or 3 innings. I think with Clay, that was an easier one to project because he'd obviously been in the bullpen for like a number of years at that point. Once you get into the back half of the year and he's pitching every 5 days and he's not done that for years, then it's probably not reasonable to expect him to be able to turn it on every five
Yeah,
days and get like the best out of him. But he still pitched I think the second, probably only behind David Peterson, the second most innings
yeah, you're
for
correct.
us last year. David Peterson was like like he wasn't perfect, but he was a relief that he'd go out on the mound. You're like, okay, we'll probably get 6 or 7 from him today. And until he got injured and again kind of had a downturn, it was kind of the same from guys like Griffin Canning and Tyler McGill.
Mm,
I guess you could say it all went wrong in the spring because they signed Mania and oh god, I can't even remember his
Frankie
name,
Montas.
Frankie
Yeah,
Montas, to these contracts to be kind of the front of the rotation guys with Senga, and then you'd only really be relying on 1 or 2 of Peterson, Holmes, Canning, and McGill to get you through the rest of it. But with Montas and Mania injured and then coming back, and Montas especially just looked like he had nothing
yeah,
when he came back from injury. And Mania, he looked great year before, obviously,
yeah.
but you do wonder whether people have figured him out
Hmm.
a little bit. Like his delivery was funky the year before, like he changed his delivery, and now are people kind of like, okay, I know what I'm getting from him. I don't know. I mean, we have another year of him, which worries me to some extent. I think I think it was just a melding of a lot of things that went wrong that kind of became the doomed Met starting rotation. But at the same time, like you said, like Nolan McLean looks awesome. If Nolan McLean can be over a full year what he was at the end of last year, then we could have like well, I mean, Mets fans are talking about him as though he's another Jacob DeGrom. I don't know if he's going to
Yeah.
be that good, but he could be amazing. And it was I think it was unfair for Stearns to call up guys like Tong and Sproat, who clearly weren't ready for major leagues at
Yeah.
that point. Like Tong had only been moved up to AAA, I think, a few weeks before he then got called up to the majors. Like he clearly wasn't ready. So, but if the rotation had held, then they wouldn't have needed to call them up. I don't think Tong should pitch in the majors next year. I think he should spend a whole. If we're going to keep him, rather than trade him for like a in a Dreamland Scooble or like
Yeah.
Freddie Peralta. If we're going to keep him, I don't think he should pitch a single inning of Major League next year.
No, I'd agree. I mean, Tong played against the Cubs, so I've seen him, and there's just a lot of contact off of him. And the
Mm.
Cubs are one of the better bat to ball skills in the team, so that's not necessarily his fault. But as you said, probably not ready. But as an effect of your rotation kind of not being great, your bullpen was, I think, overworked, with the exception of one name who we'll get onto probably in the second half of the season, second half of the review. So you made some moves at the deadline. You brought in Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals, and he was unpitchable. Just looked like a shell of the man that he'd been locking it down for the Cardinals for the last year and a half.
Mm.
Ryan Stanek, who I expected a lot more from, 5.3 ERA. Gregory Soto, 4.5 ERA. He came over at the deadline as well. I guess, is that just down to the fact that your starters couldn't go long? And by the time of the season, maybe the exception of Ryan Helsley, who I think was tipping his pitches. Is
Mm.
that why the bullpen kind of imploded, with the exception of one man?
I think that's the easy way to. I think you hope so, right? Because like we're at the moment running back the same bullpen as we had last year with a couple of additions that, like you said, we'll get onto. But like you'd hope it's just because they were overworked, overstretched. I think some blame probably lies with Mendoza with the management of the bullpen.
Mm,
Like, I don't think he was putting them in the best positions. I think there were times earlier in the season when they pulled starting pitchers in the fifth when they didn't need to. Guys like Holmes or Senga, they were pulling them earlier in games than they probably needed to. And the bullpen was kind of put in a position earlier in the season where they were maybe getting overworked. But yeah, I mean Ryan Helsey was a bad trade. And it's going to annoy me again, but the guy we traded for from the Giants, the submarine pitcher,
Oh,
Um,
Rogers.
yeah, Tyler Rogers. He was okay, but for the prospects we gave up, maybe not the best decision. But then
Yeah,
if the Mets now are one of those teams that if they don't go all in at the deadline, then fans are going to be annoyed because they have all the money and they have a really good farm system. So it's kind of lose. But if we look back, if you told Mets fans how the season ended up and said, okay, you're not going to make the playoffs, would you have rather not gone all in and traded for Helsley and Rogers and kept those prospects? Then I think they'd take that deal. So
yeah,
yeah, the bullpen was just bad all year.
yeah. Fair enough. As I said, with the exception of one man, but we're gonna talk about him in a second. So 2025 season, safe to say, bit of a letdown overall. Really good first half, very very poor second half. Let's look forward to 2026. Brighter days and all that. I'll just go over a few of the moves the Mets have made. So you have we're filming this after you guys have signed Bo Bichette, who I think we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. You also signed Devin Williams from the New York Yankees, Luke Weaver, also from the New York Yankees. Jorge Polanco came over as a free agent from the Mariners, and you've re-signed one of my favorite nicknames in baseball, Dickie Lovelady, into the bullpen, long-time Cub. On the other side of that, though, you have lost quite a few elements of your team. We've discussed Pete Alonso already. Cedric Mullins, who came over at the deadline, he's gone to the Rays. Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley, in the case of Ryan Helsley, has gone elsewhere, which I'm sure you're not too sad to see. Tyler Rogers has gone to the Blue Jays. I don't want to be a member of their I don't want to be facing their bullpen next year. Ryan Stanek's gone to the Cardinals and a couple of other minor moves. But the biggest loss, other than the Pete Alonso, for me, is Edwin Diaz. So Edwin Diaz had a 1.6 ERA last year, I want to say. Durable, played the trumpets when he comes out. How big a loss is that for the Mets bullpen, not having Edwin Diaz in 2026?
Massive, massive. Mets fans love Edwin Diaz. I've not been to City Field yet, but even just watching the videos of Edwin Diaz coming out at City Field with the trumpets, it is. I think there is something about a closer that you have to have a bit of an aura. Like Duran has it, and I think, to be fair, Williams had it until last year that people are just like, oh my God, well, if that guy's coming out, we're probably not going to get a hit here. And
Yeah,
he was just so on it last year, the whole year. There was never there's a joke that he'll put 3 runners on base and then strike out 3 players on
yeah.
9 pitches just for the fun of it. But he just never looked. You always kind of felt as though he was going to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think losing him, especially for the price we lost him at, I would so much rather have Edwin Diaz on Edwin Diaz's contract than Devin Williams on Devin Williams' contract. I know that we're paying Williams less, but the gulf in results they had last year, is night and day. So that one hurts. And I think there's an element of he probably wanted to go to the Dodgers because they're the Dodgers and he's probably going to win a World Series.
Yeah.
But what's the point of having a hedge fund billionaire owner if you're not going to throw money at guys who are performing and have performed for the team year over year?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one because you've signed Williams for 51 million over 3 years, and Edwin Diaz, I think he's on 69 million over
Yeah,
3 years. So
it's
it's
not
18 million.
much.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, in for a penny, or sorry, in for $1 million, might as well be in for 18 more at that point.
Right.
Yeah, I think your bullpen's interesting with Williams and Weaver, and of course Dickie Lovelady.
Mm.
The moves I forgot to mention. Obviously, Jeff McNeil has gone to the A's, and Brandon Nimmo has gone to the Rangers in return for Marcus Simeon. So I'm just going to read you your projected lineup as it stands currently, and just let me know how you feel about it. So this is your lineup. You've got Lindor at shortstop. Marcus, this is in the batting order. You've got Lindor at shortstop, Simeon at second base, Juan Soto just says outfield, but I imagine right field. Jorge Polanco is currently down as your DH. Mark Vientos at first, Brett Beatty at third, Francisco Alvarez at catcher, and then your outfield has also got Carson Benj and Tyrone Taylor. Your rotation is led by Nolan McLean, and then it's David Peterson, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, and Kodai Senga is down as the fifth starter. Your bullpen, amongst other names, Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, AJ Minter, Cooper Criswell, Adbert Alzolay, Brooks Raley, and Brazaban. I think I've pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
That's where you're at with your current lineup. I'll look at the positional side. I mean, obviously, Bo Bichette hasn't been featured into this, is what I'm now clocking. So probably Bo Bichette plays third. Brett Beatty enjoys the bench. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at a massive hole in your outfield. You've basically got Juan Soto, and then you might as well have me out there with the two names you put there with Tyrone Taylor and Carson Bench.
Yeah.
Would you like another addition to the outfield, or do you think you've spent enough in the right positions?
No, I think everyone's expecting another move in the outfield, and I think that's why they went above and beyond what they were probably comfortable with offering Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
I mean, the reporting looks like they offered more money to Kyle Tucker if you include if you take out the deferrals and add in the signing bonuses, then their total package was probably more than the Dodgers, and that's kind of not usually how Stearns pays guys. So I think that's kind of a bit of a sign of desperation. I wonder whether they've signed Bichette to play third because they think they need to offer somebody with a track record to trade for an outfielder, somebody like Beatty or Vientos,
Okay.
who could be used in a package to get an outfielder. People are really excited about Benj. He's a really good prospect, but he shouldn't start the year in left field. I think that would be criminal. And we've got Jet Williams as well down in AAA who people are excited about. But again, you're making the same mistake as last year if you're just throwing these guys in before they're ready. I look at teams like the Red Sox who really well managed their farm system. And then people were calling for Roman Anthony to come up for months last year. And they only brought him up when he was actually ready to play. And I think it would be a disservice to those guys to bring them up too early. I think we desperately need another outfielder. If you run Tyrone Taylor out there for a couple of months while you get one of the other guys ready from the minors, I think that's okay. But I think we desperately need a left fielder.
What's Jose Siri doing? Is he injured?
Yeah, probably. If I had to guess. He definitely was, yeah.
Because that was one of your additions last year, and I've just seen he only played 30 games for you. So
yeah, he was on a bit of a rotation with Tyrone Taylor while he was playing. He ran the bases really well, but that was about it. He plays okay defense. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't me saying that Tyrone Taylor is not an adequate enough centre fielder for Major League Baseball, but I'd argue he's not good enough for a team like the Mets that like to spend money. He's probably, I'm looking at that guy and perfect for the Pirates or someone like that. Maybe not even the Nationals, maybe not actually with their outfield. They're quite electric, but that sort of level. And I think if you're running Tyrone, I mean, it's fine to have Carson Benj out there, but I think you need star power. And because you've gone and lost, Nimmo had a good year last year. You've lost Pete Alonso. McNeil was maybe not a star, but was solid. I know you've got Marcus Simeon back to replace McNeil. I just think you're an outfielder short.
The one thing I'll say about Nimmo though is that, and I think that's David Stern said this at the end of last year, is that they wanted to get better on defense, and Nimmo, it's an understatement to say that he lost a step last year.
Okay.
He lost a few steps, and he was when he signed his long-term contract, he was a good outfielder.
Yeah.
He was putting up slightly above average defensive numbers, but last year was not great. So I think that you'd hope that they're getting some benefit from that at least, even with one of the young guys in there.
No, fair enough. Very well put. On the starter side, I mean, you're running it back basically and relying on Nolan McLean. I would like to see. I don't think you should give up on Kodai Senga. I think he's shown enough he showed enough in the first season and a half where give him the first 2 months of the season and then make a decision. He doesn't deserve to be booted out. But I look at that rotation. I'm not scared by it. I mean, Nolan McLean, yes, but David Peterson's down as your number 2 starter. I'm like, okay, fine. But if you want to wheel him out against the Cubs, go for it. I'm more scared. If Mania bounces back and Senga bounces back, it's a different story. And you have Peterson and Holmes in your 4 and 5. But would you like another starting pitcher addition, or have you got faith in bounce back seasons for the Mania and Senga?
I've got like you. I've got more faith in Senga than I do in Manaya,
Yeah,
just because he's done it. He's shown a higher level over a longer period, whereas Manaya's season almost felt like, wow, where did this come from? I think Senga could be a good, but then we didn't even pitch Senga every 5 days last year because they were worried about injuries. They pitched him every 6 games, and
yeah,
they started using bullpen games and opener games, and it's like that starts to become a liability and contributes to the bullpen issues as well if those guys are being overworked. So I would love to add a Freddie Peralta, and it seems like the Brewers, for whatever reason, want to get rid of him. I guess because they don't want to pay him.
yeah.
But if he's available, and I don't know if many Mets fans would agree, but I would give up Sproat in a package for Peralta. I think they'll have to give up someone like a Tong or a Sproat. So I would do that in a heartbeat, honestly. I'd put that package together.
Yeah, I mean, if you could take Peralta out of the NL Central, I'd be eternally grateful. He's on a very
Yeah.
nice deal as well. I was discussing it. Actually last week I was discussing it. 9.5 million for this year, or 10 million for the
No, it's
season, and
nothing.
then free agency. And I think the Brewers want to trade him because they know they're not going to keep him past this year. So
Yeah.
let's get 4 or 5 prospects, rebuild the farm, and knowing the Brewers, they'll make it work and they'll be in the playoffs again. But side point, sorry,
Yeah.
scarring from last year. Okay, so the one addition that we've not really talked about, well, two, Marcus Simeon for me is like a fine. Like I don't think he'll give you as much on offense anymore, but it might be nicer hitting in City Field compared to Globe Life. I don't know. I thought the weather down in Texas was quite nice. I might be wrong, but the big one who you signed yesterday or the day before, Bo Bichette, 126 million over 3 years. There are opt outs after each year, I believe. Um, That to me seemed like a panic buy because you guys missed out on Cole Tucker. But I'm guessing as a Mets fan, you're not upset to see Bo Bichette taking the field next year.
No, definitely not. I think I initially thought that as well. It felt like, okay, let's throw money at the problem. If we're not going to get Carl Tucker, let's try and get somebody else. But it seems that there was long-term interest.
Hmm.
And the other benefit is that he seemed to have agreed a deal with the Phillies before we signed him. So that
Yeah.
just feels a little bit sweeter as a Mets fan. Um, but if Soto is going to get on base at a higher rate than anybody else in the league, and Bo Bichette's going to bat over 300, which he does consistently, especially with players in scoring position. He's one of the best in the league. Then that's pretty dangerous
Hmm.
because at that then you kind of have to pitch to Soto because if you can't put Soto on base with Bichette behind him, whereas you probably and I hate to say it again because I love Pete Alonso, but Pete Alonso didn't hit well with players on base last year.
Yeah.
He hit really well. He hit a lot of solo home runs. He hit a
Yeah.
lot of doubles off the wall that then went nowhere. But if Bichette is hitting behind Soto, then I think that's a different story.
Yeah. I'm a bit worried about that lineup with Soto and Bichette. If you'd kept Pete Alonso as well, fuck
Mm,
me. I know I said I shouldn't really. I try not to swear as much on these podcasts, but if you had a Soto, Bichette, Pete Alonso, if you had Pete Alonso batting behind Bichette, oh, that would be filthy. I'm
yeah,
thinking about it now, just thinking you wouldn't. I'd say that's better than the Dodgers lineup.
yeah.
That offense. Chuck in
I
Francisco Alvarez.
I kind of agree, and I think what people aren't. Everyone wants to talk about the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers are going to be great this year, but if guys start to decline, if Freddie Freeman isn't as good as he has been, and he's still hobbling around the bases, then I don't know. I could see a fall off, but then at the same time, they can just trade or spend their way out of the problem. So maybe I'm wishful
Yeah.
thinking.
I mean, I won't touch about the Dodgers too much, but I think Mookie Betts has already started to decline.
Mm,
And I think Freddie Freeman's always going to hobble around the bases. The man hasn't got any knees, but
yeah,
he'll hit 45 doubles and a
yeah.
few home runs. But obviously they've got the unicorn, the magician. Um, Anyway, that's sort of the main bulk of the episode. Couple of last questions before we end on the 2026 season. Can I tempt you with an under over? You want to give me a wins total for next year?
I think anything less than 90 means that Stearns maybe loses his job. I
Okay.
and I think he has to improve. It all depends on the rest of the offseason. If they don't add an outfielder and a starting pitcher, I'd put the over/under at like 85. But if they do add like an above average outfielder and an elite starting pitcher, I'd put it at like 93. But maybe I'm being bullish.
No, you're more than. I think 90 is a fair answer for where you guys could be at. So should we split the difference and say we're looking at 87.5 for now? Just because we need to. We can't come on here in a month's time. Well, we can, but we can't come on here in a month's time and go be like, yeah, the Mets are going to win 90 games. So do you want to set it at 87.5? Just meet in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. And are you taking the under or the over?
I'll take the over.
Over.
I'll be the optimist.
That's fine. I mean, I had one guy predict on these, but I can't remember which one it was. Predict 116 wins for their team. So you are in much more realistic realm of predictions, which is great.
I am used to being let down. That's fine. Yeah.
You should always take the over as well. My second and final question before we get into the final segment. Imagine I'm new to baseball, as we all have been in our lives. And I'm looking down the teams and I'm going, do you know what? I've heard of them Yankees. Everyone in Britain is wearing caps of them, as you would. I don't own one. I used to. I don't want to be a fan of them. I don't want to be a sheep. I want to be a shepherd. Who would really annoy the Yankees that I'm a fan of? Oh, well, there's another team in New York. Must be the Mets. What have I got to look forward to as a potential Mets fan in 2026, and why should I support them?
I think it's an easy pitch. I think you get to watch one of the best players who is still in his prime play for the next 5-10 years in his prime in Juan Soto. I think in 2026 you get to watch guys like young guys like Nolan McLean and probably Carson Bench and maybe Ryan Clifford as well come up to the majors and contribute. And I don't know, they're just a cool team. They get like, I'm desperate to go to Citi Field. They got so many fans there last year for a team in the back half of last year who were dreadful, who were blowing games, who were not coming back from losses. And the stadiums were packed. And on weekdays, the stadiums were packed. Like, they're a fun team to watch, and they have a great fan base. Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you're listening to this and want to pick a team, and you're going to pick a team from New York, don't pick the Yankees. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Don't be that person. Pick the Mets. Have a bit more fun. And they can spend as much as the Dodgers. They don't, but they can. So maybe they save baseball. Who knows? That's going to wrap it up for our 2025 season review, including the 2026 predictions. George, you've been fantastic, but unfortunately, I cannot let you leave without a start bench cut because it's tradition. So if you don't know how start bench cut works, to the viewer, Cal likes to say, welcome to your first year at school. I don't know how else to explain it to you. 3 words. You start one, you bench one, you cut one. You get 3 choices. We do a baseball one, we do a non-baseball one. We start with the baseball one because we like to end on something that isn't baseball. So for you today, George, I want you to think of the Mets' biggest rivals. And just what the rivalry games you like. You know, who would you like to go and see? You say you haven't been to Citi Field. Which rivalry game would you most like to see at Citi Field? So the 3 I've got for you, because I think they are the 3 biggest rivals for the Mets, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I've got Subway Series against the Yankees, and then I've got you against a couple of NL East rivals. I've got the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. If you could start one, bench one, and cut one, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, they're definitely the 3 biggest. I'd start the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely the most animosity there. And those are always good atmospheres. I think the best thing I can say about it is that I wouldn't go to Citizen Bank to watch a game there because you turn up in a Mets hat there, you're not gonna get the time.
Yeah.
I bench the Braves. I think they'll be a lot better this year, which is not good news for the Mets. And I'd cut the Yankees. The Yankees rivalry is so forced. They're just upset because Soto didn't want to go back to them.
Okay.
And I think the Mets, even in a down year last year, were better than the Yankees in those games. And the year before, they just demolished them. So, yeah, it doesn't interest me.
I'm shocked by that because I know, growing up in Britain, your rivals with the teams you're closest to, right? With the exception of weirdly Brighton and Crystal Palace. If you're an American soccer fan, I say soccer, I say football, but soccer for you guys. And you look up the M23 derby and you can explain to me why a team 60 miles away from each other hate each other, come on the show and let me know. But for me, I'd always assumed that the Yankees and the Mets would hate each other. But when I was looking into it, no, there is a bigger rivalry with the Phillies. You're absolutely correct. If I was doing this, I see, not being a Mets fan doesn't help. I would start the Phillies still, but I would bench the Yankees over the Braves just for the geographical location of it, and it's easy to get to. But I'm not a Mets expert, so all the Mets fans might listen to this and go, no, we really hate the Braves. The Yankees are just there. And I'll be like, completely fair. I'm not a Mets fan. Let's move on.
We do really hate the Braves. We really do.
They are a division rival. I appreciate that. Time for your I say it's a non-baseball related start bench cut. It is baseball related, but it's a bit of a fun one. So you guys had a really, really good year in 2024, right? Making it to the NLCS against the Dodgers. And a lot of people put that down to a bit of black magic going on because the Mets shouldn't have been that good that year. And you were. And there were 3 elements of, I want to say, motivation that people were like, yeah, these were the turning points for the Mets. And I want you to start one, bench one, and cut one. So it's not technically, it is baseball related, but it's a bit more of a fun one. So just for the events themselves, you've got the Hawk Tour girl throwing out the first pitch. You've got Jose Iglesias, who was your third baseman that year, Enrique's cousin, for those of you that don't know, seeing OMG and that kind of being like the banner phrase for the year. Or you've got Grimace, the McDonald's mascot, throwing out the first pitch, who I think he went on like a 20-game unbeaten run after he did that. So start bench cut, and I never thought I'd say this sentence on this podcast: Hawk Tour girl, OMG, or Grimace.
It's definitely cut Hawk Tour. Like I'll always appreciate her for what she did for throwing out that first pitch and getting us on that run. But it's definitely between Grimace and OMG. The best OMG moment was when they won and then he performed it on the field after the game. Do you imagine being one of the opposing players and you get beat and then they just decide to sing a song on the field or the players? It was amazing.
Yeah.
But there's an amazing video of Mets fans outside Citi Field. I think it was during the divisional round against the Phillies, where somebody's dressed as Grimace stood on like a big table above everyone. He's just downing beers and everyone's cheering him on. And like Grimace on the 7 train as well, heading to Citi Field. So I'm gonna go start Grimace, bench OMG, cut Hawk Tour.
That's exactly the same thing I would do. I think if you've got a purple mascot throwing out the first pitch for just a random promotional event and then you go on a 15-game unbeaten run, that to me is more important than team spirit.
No, 100%.
You can't recreate that. George, you've been absolutely fantastic and an absolute joy to have on. Is there anything you would like to... We don't like to do shameless plugs on this podcast, but at the same time, we absolutely do. Is there anything you'd like to plug on this podcast that you're working on at the moment?
No, honestly, there's not much that I've got going on baseball-wise that I would plug. I think I'd rather plug... I'll plug petitioning the MLB to bring back the London series. If you can somehow do that, if you have any connections, then I'm plugging you to do that.
I'll be honest, MLB don't really like us because we're not big on Rob Manfred. So
yeah,
a few comments we've used in the past includes me and Cal both saying he's shit at his job and we would do a better job than him. But realistically, Rob Manfred, we love you. We love you and we love YouTube.
It's about the only thing I have in common with Bryce Harper is my disdain for Rob Manfred. So yeah.
Just to clarify, George isn't part of the podcast MLB, so if you listen to that, he's not involved. I couldn't disagree more with his view. We love Rob Manfred. Hopefully they're not watching the YouTube video. George, you've been fantastic. This has been a Brit Does Baseball Does podcast season review series. This is episode, what we at? 12 or 13. It will come out on the title. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you and goodbye.